Hey, it's Christmas Tech with Aussie Phil, and in this is going to be sort of like a bit of a deep dive. It's important for newbies to understand, but even the experienced people should get something out of this, and I really hope they do. It's about why voltage into your string matters, and minimizing the voltage drop in your string, and also understanding how the voltage drop affects your string. There's a number of calculators out there that show the voltage drop will taper off in a curve. I'll see if I can do that. I'll normally say it tapers off like that. And to exaggerate, the reality is it actually does this. And it flattens out. It doesn't go up, it flattens out over the length of the string. It's pretty obvious when you start to really think about it. No, I'll be quite honest and up front. We always said from the early days it probably did that, and probably closer to linear than it did in any other way. The reality is when you start to measure it and you start to think about it, it's literally just not true. Because when you think about it, all your current and most of your voltage drop occurs in your first 20 odd pixels, because that wire right up front is drawing current. So let's have a bit of a look at the test setup today. We have a little box here that allows me just to plug stuff in. I have a set of 10 pixels. 10 because it's a nice easy number for us to do some calculations on after the fact. Just divide everything by 10 and we start to get some averages. Do some of that in my head. Multimeter that's measuring the actual input voltage at this point in the box. So it's taking account of any voltage drop we've got on the cable coming down to that. I've actually got a meter looking at the output voltage. I haven't got the ability to display that today, but we'll tell you what that is. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them on 100% white. These are quite old pixels. If you watch the repair video, these are 2801s. They probably date from around about 2010. That's how old they are. They're still working. But they date back to the time when, we got pretty high currents. And some of the stuff around, your pixels will draw 60 milliamps. Well, these are the things that started all those numbers. So what we'll do is we're going to turn the voltage on. And I'll just turn off the Vixen data coming into the string. We'll just turn that on and you can see there that with absolutely no data, I've got 5 volts coming out of the power supply. I've got 5 volts at the box, and I've got 5 volts just about precisely on coming out the other end of that string. The little bit of current you've got there showing on the power supply, some of that's for this guy. So the quiescent current of these guys is practically nothing, to be quite honest. When we look at it in reality. Let's turn this power supply on. I'll try and keep this one a little bit shorter than normal. And got to learn not to do that. Sorry. We were on. Let's turn on some lights. So we've got 100% white set. Sorry for the brightness and the display. I'm going to leave them there because it matters as we go on. We've got about 590 milliamps, so an average of 59 milliamps per LED. Exactly what we would expect coming out of these guys. The spec for these was 60 milliamps, so we're just fractionally under that. And when we start to look at the little voltages and stuff, you will start to understand why. So we've got 4.968 going into our string. And out the other end, we've got 4.82. So with only 10 pixels, we're dropping 160 milliamps. 160 millivolts, not amps. 160, 140 actually, millivolts. Doesn't sound like much, but you add that up across the entire string, it starts to get interesting. Now, why voltage in matters and why we get the drop isn't linear. So this will allow us to simulate what happens maybe on the next string that you plug into a thing where you've got 4 volts out of your string, and I'm talking 5-volt strings here, but this would apply to 12-volt pixels. 12-volt pixels, a string of 50 might have 10 volts coming out the other end. Voltage drop stuff is all the same because it's based on current going over the wires. So what we have here, and let me explain some of the theory, is we've got 580, I'll call it 580, coming into this string. This guy takes 60 milliamps. Coming to this one, we've got 520 milliamps on the wire. This guy takes out our 60 milliamps all the way down. So the current draw going on this bit of wire here is only 60 milliamps. You can plug this into some theories and draw it up, and you can see, most likely, with a bit of luck, that we are right on this one. So most of the voltage drop occurs here. A little bit less here, a little bit less there, and less there, and further on down that string. Let's look what happens when we just change that, and we'll change this by 100 millivolts at a time. Let's look what happens to the current. So 580, 4.9 in, we've dropped to 570, 4.8. Well, 4.7, as you can see on the meter, actually going into the string. We've dropped to 550 on average. Go to 4.7. You can see the current is going down. I'll pull that down to 4.2. 4.2 is not an unusual number to be getting out the other end of a string of pixels. Now, it's interesting that the camera is picking these up brighter when they're on their side rather than facing straight up to the camera. We're down to 400 milliamps. So on average, every pixel is only drawing 40 milliamps. This would be, it's really good cockatoo flying over my shed, squawking a lot. So if you hear that, you understand what that is. Let me wind that down, because these little supplies time out after a little bit, and change the settings. So let me wind that down to, we'll go down to 3.5. We'll be quite drastic. With a bit of luck, as I did that, you would have noticed the brightness drop off. And the brightness dropped off because now we're only drawing 25 milliamps on average. So 250 milliamps divided by 10, 25 milliamps per pixel. What you will notice though is they're all still white. There's no issues there because we're above the voltage needed to drive a blue LED, which has typically got a forward voltage drop around about 3.2 volts, somewhere in there, depending on what they used. So if we, again, let's just do that. Come down to 3.2. We've got even less brightness here. And once I go to 3.1, you'll start to see some pink tinge. And as it drops off even further. Now 3 volts would be somewhere in the middle of another 50 count string on 5 volts. We've definitely got pink, but we're down to 14 milliamps per pixel on average. And that'll be because the blue LED's starting to not work. And if we wind them down even further, we'll come down to 2 volts. You can see they're genuine reds, and we're down to 17 milliamps, so that pretty much says only the red one is lit up, and gives you an idea. But if we wind that back up, we'll come back up to 3 volts. We'll come to 3.5. That's a fair voltage. So we've got 250 milliamps, 25 milliamps per. Now, if this was a full string and we had 3.5 volts at the end of the string, this last pixel would be only wanting to draw 25 milliamps. because that's all it can draw or use at 3.5 volts. So the total current draw on a full string would end up being less than what all the calculators tell you and what the theory tells you, just because of the voltage drop. So this is why voltage is very important. So if you have any questions about that, drop on over to the Oz Christmas Lighting Forum. We'll post a thread about this and give some further details, or throw something in the comments below, and we will answer all comments and we will go from there. So thank you for watching. As I said, head on over to Oz Christmas Lighting for more information on Christmas lighting in general, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you have liked the video or it's found it useful, put a like on it. If you want to see more of these, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, and thank you very much for watching.